you give up so easily? I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Stephen, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Stephen, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it.
This is Steven Crowder talking to his wife in a video that leaked not too long ago, and is the premise for the claim that he has been abusive to his wife. Now, we're going to talk about the entire drama beginning to end, including this video and a new one that came out not too long ago. And I'm going to try to explain how all of this played out and why I agree with the conclusion that a lot of people have come to, that he is absolutely terrible, that he's an absolutely terrible person. So let's start from the beginning. What is his beef with the Daily Wire? What happened? What is the deal here? Quick cutaway. We'll get back to it in a second. Just quick reminder. The YouTube algorithm operates off of a few factors. It pushes a video further if you watch it to the very end, if you like the video, and if you subscribe. If possible, I would appreciate it if you guys watched my videos to the very end at least. If you start one, make it to the end. All right, sorry for the interjection. Let's continue. In October 2022, Steven Crowder received an offer, or a term sheet is what it's called, from the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's network or whatever, right? They offered him a term sheet to become one of their influencers, one of their talent, if you will, for $50 million. They offered him $50 million to become one of their hosts, the same way that like Matt Walsh is a Daily Wire host, or Candace Owens, or whoever else, right? That is a lot of money. There was complete silence. Like, no, we didn't even know about the term sheet at the time. A little bit of time passes. January rolls around, and Steven Crowder comes out with this video criticizing somebody. He didn't name the company, but he says this somebody out there, this corporation offered him a bunch of money to be their host or whatever, to be one of the hosts on their network, because he's just leaving The Blaze, which is Glenn Beck's network. So the Daily Wire offered him this term sheet as he's exiting The Blaze, and he kind of lost his mind and started accusing them of taking advantage of him and everything else. Ben Shapiro is going to explain it pretty succinctly here. Just give it a listen. Listen to what Ben Shapiro has to say about it. This is January 20th, 2023. This is Ben Shapiro's response to accusations that they were assisting big tech at the Daily Wire.
We offered Steven a term sheet, a non-binding term sheet. A non-binding term sheet is exactly what it sounds like. It is a list of terms for a proposed negotiation for a contract. And then negotiation happens, then you come to a final contract. That is what
Right. When you receive a term sheet from somebody, you call them up and you talk through it and you scratch things out and you add things like, okay, I don't want 50 million. I want 75 million, but I'm willing to, let you do the recording and the editing and the this and that and whatever. You kind of work through the agreement. The term sheet is just a starting offer, basically.
non-binding term sheet is. His agent had solicited us to make him an offer. This is when he was in his closing days with the Blaze. And so we sent him over a non-binding term sheet for $50 million over the course of 4 years.
Oh my God, that's something that that's something that I missed last time I listened to this. He says his agent solicited him. That means Steven Crowder requested the term sheet, if Ben Shapiro is to be believed here. Steven Crowder requested the term sheet from the Daily Wire because he wanted to be one of their hosts since he's leaving the Blaze, Glenn Beck's network. That's fascinating.
He was in his closing days with the Blaze. And so we sent him over a non-binding term sheet for $50 million over the course of 4 years with an additional 2-year option at $25 million. That is, as it sounds like, a lot of money. But we thought that Steven is worth it because Steven is, again, an incredibly talented guy with a very, very large following. And if you want to hear the actual terms of the term sheet, all you have to do is go to the description on this particular video or head on over to YouTube, and you can see my business partner, Jeremy Boring, read the terms word for word.
That's a pretty big deal. They don't usually release, private term sheets like that, but Steven Crowder kind of released bits and pieces of it publicly anyway, so the Daily Wire decided to release the entire contents of the term sheet. Went through it word for word, like he said. And Steven Crowder basically complained that if he loses YouTube monetization, then his pay is cut accordingly, which makes sense. You're not bringing money in for this company. because you've lost YouTube monetization, then we have no money to give you back. That's the deal. In my opinion, Steven Crowder was completely wrong in his assessment of this situation, and I have to believe that he only acted in bad faith to get an email list. That's my hot take on this. I think Steven Crowder was full of it. He knew what he was doing, and he did it intentionally to take advantage of the situation, but who knows for sure. The thing is, Daily Wire is not a charity. This isn't like a communist company, right? I mean, they make money too, and if you're not bringing money in for them, they should have no obligation to pay you. You're a contractor. Contract work and full-time employee work are very different. If they're paying you $50 million over the course of 4 years, you better be bringing something to the table for them. That should be obvious, right?
Steven's original video in which he attacked us. So this week, Steven attacked Jeremy Boring and attacked the Daily Wire and suggested that if we had essentially offered him an enslavement contract that would have robbed him of all of his freedom and made him subject to the whims of big tech and all the rest of this kind of bull. And it's just not true.
Yeah, totally agree. It was complete nonsense. I don't know what Steven Crowder's goal was with this, but it was garbage.
True. Jeremy, unlike Steven, read the entire text of the term sheet on the air and goes through it piece by piece and explains exactly how it works. And in short, all the contract says is, we are offering you this gigantic sum of money, and if you start to lose money for the company and for yourself because you lose YouTube, for example, then we both lose money, so you lose some money. Because this is typically how contracts work. On this show, for example, if I lose advertisers and the revenue of the show goes down, then I lose revenue personally because the revenue of the show has gone down. So again, if you want the details, the legalistic details.
Yeah, he's 100% correct here, Ben Shapiro is. I don't like either of these people. I think Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder are terrible in every way, and they have a detrimental effect on society. I think they make society worse by adding their public discourse to it. Like, dramatically worse, both of them. But from an objective point of view, just standing on the outside looking in, Steven Crowder was wrong here.
All this, you can check out Jeremy's video. It is absolutely comprehensive and irrefutable because, again, he reveals, I've never seen anybody else do this, he reveals literally the entirety of the what was supposed to be confidential term sheet that Steven decided to partially leak for his own benefit.
So basically, Steven Crowder leaked part of this term sheet that wasn't that exploitative. Dude's getting $50 million, okay? A slave contract for $50 million? Like, give me a break. It's disgusting that he would even say such a thing. So anyway, that, he complains about that and targets the Daily Wire. And it's just absurd, man. Like, come on. So after Ben Shapiro releases that video, Steven Crowder comes out with this January 19th, 2023.
They don't get deals that...
They can be wage slaves for a little bit, come over and make a salary and grow their brand. They can be wage slaves for a little bit. They can be wage slaves for a little bit.
So he recorded a phone call. Steven Crowder recorded a phone call between himself and the Daily Wire co-owner, Jeremy Boring, basically Ben Shapiro's business partner, and picked out a little section that sounded really, really terrible. Now, when Jeremy Boring says people can be wage slaves for a little bit, build their brand and all that, typically working for exposure is a joke. Generally speaking, if some 50,000 subby YouTuber asks you to do free artwork for them and they'll pay you in exposure, it's a scam, okay? The vast majority of the time, if you're working for exposure, it's a scam. But not for the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire is massive. Aren't they like the #1 most visited Facebook page on the entire platform or something like that? It's obscene how many views the Daily Wire gets. Trust me, working for the Daily Wire for free, you're still getting a deal. Believe me on that one. Now, again, he probably picked the term wage slave to use for that specific thing because he thought he was talking to a friend. He's using it casually. It's not accurate to call somebody a wage slave if they're working for exposure for the Daily Wire. But Steven Crowder took it uncharitably and intentionally, warped it out of proportion to make the Daily Wire look like the scumbags that they are, but for a different reason than than why they really are scumbags. So keep listening to Steven Crowder talk about this.
For a little bit.
God bless the talk boy. Those things are worth like $5,000 now. It's an expensive gag.
No, they're not. I looked this up not too long ago. I am a connoisseur of old things. I love old stuff like the talk boy. You can't go to eBay and just search things up necessarily. But if you go to eBay and search up talk boy and then select sold items at the very bottom, just select that one and see how much they're selling for. Vintage Home Alone 2 talk boy tape player recorder box, not working. $56, not working. Let's see. Here's one, $43. Deluxe talk boy cassette tape Home Alone 2 cassette recorder. So the last one was an auction. It sold for $43 at auction. Here's one that sold for this one was listed for $250 and sold for $250, not an auction. Probably not worth that much. Here's one that sold for $35. I mean, it's kind of hit or miss. People list them for different prices. That's why you have to check last sold, instead of looking for what people are charging for them. But they're like $200 maximum, probably closer to $50. So, yeah, that's just nonsense. $5,000? Does he have any concept of money and what it is and how much a certain amount can buy? You know what? I'd be willing to bet, like, one of his producers, somebody kind of took advantage of him there. Yeah, Talk Boy's like $5,000 now. I'm going to need $5,000. Just going to pull it out of the bank account.
$1 now. It's an expensive gag. So didn't want to have to do this, but Daily Wire outed themselves very, very quickly. And sure enough, if you see all of the people who work there, some of whom I have relationships with, they immediately tried to make this all about money.
By the way, this is the day after Ben Shapiro came out and explained everything. This is January 21st, 2023, when he said this one.
Here's the problem. There are a few problems, and I'll go through with some receipts. Everything that was said about negotiations, how they transpired, beyond the numerical value, which is true, and I'll get to, everything else is untrue.
No, I mean, they went through the entire contract line by line. I watched this entire video, and eventually he gets to the point where he explains that it was misrepresented. Not that the actual facts of the contract are misrepresented. He accepts that the contract that they went through on the Daily Wire website was accurate. He just doesn't like how they presented the information is all. So anyways, after all of that, January 24th, 3 days after that, Candace Owens comes out and she says this on her program. Remember, Candace Owens is a Daily Wire host.
Steven has a lot going on, I guess is the best way to say it. He has a lot going on, and that should be clear because people don't do stuff like this if there's not a lot going on in their lives. I would like to implore my audience and everybody that isn't paying attention to this situation not to condemn him, but to pray for him. Sometimes people need a prayer. Sometimes people need a scripture. You know, Steven purports to be a Christian. I am unsure at this moment if it is my place to say more than that. You know, maybe if I feel in further defense, some things should be said, or maybe if I feel that the public has a right to understand certain circumstances.
Oh boy, sounds like she's about to spill some serious tea right now, right? Oh, I love it to death, dude. I love the far-right extremist infighting. I just eat this stuff up. It's fantastic. So anyways, yeah, Candace Owens basically came out and did what I would reasonably characterize as a mild threat, right? She mildly threatened him. She said, keep coming at Daily Wire, and some information might leak eventually, right? I love this, dude. This is great. All right, April 25th, 2023. That brings us up to Steven Crowder's response, because months go by. He said nothing about the situation, right? Didn't respond to anything, nothing. It's just radio silence. And then April 25th rolls around, and he releases this in response to Candace Owens.
I loved a woman so much that I married her. A woman who, despite all of this, I still love as the mother of my children.
Oh boy, he's getting divorced, and he claims, as we'll see in a minute, that's what Candace Owens was talking about. That the divorce is the big secret that Candace Owens claimed to know about that nobody else was supposed to know about. Okay, interesting. There's more to the story, though. This is fascinating for a number of reasons, but one really, really good reason to follow this drama is because it gives you some insight into the way that Steven Crowder frames up arguments and propagandizes about subjects that are important to him. It seems like basic internet drama that's like unimportant, like whatever, who cares if Steven Crowder's getting divorced, whatever else, blah, blah, blah. But it's really valuable, if for no other reason than because we now have the benefit of looking in from the outside, from a non-politically charged situation, and seeing how he frames things up and argues points and how he fights generally. This is a good opportunity for everybody, not just people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport, but anybody, to see how Steven Crowder handles arguments and propaganda and political points. That's why I really want to talk about this.
And she wanted something else for her life. That's not my choice. She simply wanted out, and the law says that that's how it works. Now, of course...
Okay, is he saying that women shouldn't be allowed to get divorced if they don't want to?
And the law says that that's how it works. Now, of course, look, I get it. There are multiple sides to every story, but one thing that is undeniable in this case is that it's no one's fault but my own in that I picked wrong, and that's certainly not the fault of my children.
Okay, why are the children coming into the equation? I don't understand. Like, he's very clearly just using his kids as a shield from further criticism, right? If you continue coming after me, Candace Owens, then you're going to hurt my children. Do you really want to hurt my children? How are his kids going to suffer from this? Like, first of all, and second, Steven Crowder brought all of this on himself. Every last bit of this is his doing, okay? I don't even know what he's talking about right now. Like, this is nonsense. So anyways, it's his fault, right? Okay.
And I will say that what's in the best interest of my children is not internet drama, speculation, certainly not blatant or veiled shakedowns or dragging their father or mother, and I can't be clear on that enough, or their mother through the mud.
So basically, I get the impression that he's trying to kill the drama, and he's using his children as a human shield in the process, right? This next one is really important. This is where he makes some very specific claims that were immediately disproven.
I have been living with a proverbial boot on my neck for going on years now. Since 2021, I've been living through what has increasingly been a horrendous divorce. Now, let me say on the outset, to be clear, there is no infidelity, any kind of physical abuse at all on either side.
No physical abuse on either side. Interesting. Okay.
And no, this was not my choice. My then wife decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. And in the state of Texas, that is completely permitted.
Wow. The gall of Texas to permit a woman to make a choice for herself, huh? Absolutely absurd on every level. Like, these people are obsessed with controlling everybody around them, with controlling women and the choices that they make for their own bodies or for themselves. This dude is effectively saying right now he doesn't believe that women should be allowed to divorce somebody and without the man's permission. The man should decide, evidently. This is nuts. How did we get here? Seriously, you know, in the 70s, women weren't allowed to have credit cards. They weren't allowed to rent a home of their own or buy a house or get a loan or anything at all. And it's almost like they're trying to bring us back to that time. Like, they're doing everything they can to decrease and roll back women's rights as far back as humanly possible. It's nuts, dude.
It's been the most heartbreaking experience of my life, what I consider to be my deepest personal failure. And just so you know, my opinions on parenting and families have not changed. I've always believed that children need a mom and a dad, that divorce is horrible. And I still believe that children need a mom and a dad and that divorce is horrible. but in today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter.
God, see how he frames this? This is like, he's framing it as though he's being persecuted, right? In today's legal system, my beliefs don't matter. What he's trying to do is prevent somebody from exercising their own rights to live their own life, right? He's trying to prevent his wife from being allowed to leave him, from being allowed to divorce him. Now, in the United States, we live under a concept that goes like this. Your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. You can swing it anywhere you want, except for right here, because that would no longer be you exercising your rights. That is now you violating my rights. Let's take the analogy one step further. Imagine you are sitting in your apartment building, right? And you're allergic to cigarette smoke. It makes you break out in hives, maybe sends you into anaphylactic shock, could kill you possibly. I mean, let's take this all the way. Unlikely. I don't even know if that's possible. Just bear with me for the sake of argument, okay? And what do you smell coming through the walls from your neighbor's front door but cigarette smoke? Your neighbor has a balcony. They have the choice of going out on their balcony and smoking, rather than smoking right next to their front door or even near the hallway, which is putting your rights at risk. That is your neighbor swinging their fist, which is perfectly fine. It's in their apartment. But now their fist is extending out into your apartment, right? They're exercising their rights to smoke a cigarette in their house, but it is now interfering with you. So their right to smoke a cigarette in their house has to be stifled at least a little bit to protect the rights of the people around them. That's how the concept works. So Steven Crowder says his beliefs are not respected in today's legal system. And what are his beliefs? That he should be allowed to control somebody and violate their rights. I was swinging my fist at this guy's face, and the law says I can't. And that's violating my rights because I'm allowed to swing my fist whenever I want and wherever I want. That's not true. There are limitations on things for other people's good to protect everybody's rights. Women have the right to make decisions for themselves. And Steven Crowder is trying to claim to be persecuted by not being allowed to violate other people's rights. That's how he frames it up. And by the way, the KKK's been framing, that's been their framing since the 1980s at least, earlier than that even, the 60s, the 50s, the 40s. White people are being persecuted and mistreated because black people want to live in the vicinity of them, because they want to move into the same neighborhood, because they want to go to the same schools. White people are being persecuted because black people are around. Same framing as the KKK. There's a reason I bring that up. I just covered a KKK Grand Wizard interview from 1982 on my main channel the other day. Take a look if you want. It's actually pretty interesting, I think. I may put a link in the description if you want to watch it. But yeah, in the 1982 interview, he gives the exact same framing against affirmative action that Steven Crowder just gave against no-fault divorce.
Texas, divorce is permitted when one party wants it, period. So for well over a year, in the best interest as well as physical safety of my children,
Wait, physical safety of your children? I'm sorry, wait a minute. How are your children in danger? I don't understand. Are you protecting your address from being leaked to the public? I get that. 100%. Yeah, that would be putting your children's lives at risk. Absolutely. That's a good reason to protect the safety of your children. Not you starting internet drama with the Daily Wire and then hiding behind your children and claiming if somebody hits back at you that they're putting your children at risk? No, that's nonsense. Come on.
As well as physical safety of my children, we've decided to keep this issue private and to resolve it privately with the appropriate attorneys.
That's probably an okay idea, but being as obsessed with family values as this guy purports to be, it was probably a better idea to just come out on Twitter and say, I'm going through a divorce. It's not my choice. I still believe in these values, and then move on with your life. It seems to me that probably would have been the better idea, but okay.
And to resolve it privately with the appropriate attorneys, what have you, legal jargon. And all this, one thing I want to be really clear about is certain. True north here is that my children are blameless.
Okay. Did anybody blame your children? They're like, I think they were born August 2021. And the reason I know that is because I was adding dates into my files earlier to kind of track down exact timestamps and stuff like that in preparation for this. I think they were born August 2021. So what, a year and a half? Did anybody blame a 1-year-old for any of this? He's very obviously just using his kids as a shield, right?
My children are blameless, completely without fault, and so we decided to resolve these issues privately, as it's in their best interests, both emotionally and physically.
Then why are you bringing it up? Seriously, it can't be because Candace Owens, called you out. It was months ago. Keep your mouth shut and move on with your life. First of all, and second, how are your children in danger? He said they're in physical danger if this comes out. Okay, well, he just talked about it. So are they in more danger now than they were like a week ago or whatever? In what way are they in physical danger now that it's out in the open? They're like a year old, twins. So now he goes on to address the Candace Owens thing. This is his response to Candace Owens, quote unquote, threatening him. And to be fair, it does feel like she was kind of, hinting at that a little bit.
Some, not all, but some of them in positions of power, influence, leverage, knew of this.
Knew of the divorce.
They also knew that the safety of my children included keeping it private. So if you're familiar...
Wait, I'm sorry. Hang on. Let's one more time.
That the safety of my children included keeping it private. So
how? How are your children in more danger now that you have announced this to the world? Candace Owens didn't say anything to anybody. She said, if you continue fighting the Daily Wire, then I will reveal this or that or whatever to the world. She didn't even specify. How are your children in danger more now that you release the information to the world? It's just absurd on every level. He's just using his kids as a shield here, right?
Private. So if you're familiar with the idea of extortion, then you know the feeling well. Now, some of these...
Yeah, it's fair. I'm comfortable saying that Candace Owens was definitely kind of hinting at that, right?
Threats were so thinly veiled that I'm frankly surprised you didn't all guess immediately.
Yeah, it's fair to call it that. For what it's worth, Steven Crowder actually had an elective surgery because he had something called, I guess it's like a sunken chest. And it's like a cosmetic thing, right? Here's where it gets interesting. People are saying that this is like pec implants. Like, I think Candace Owens claimed that these were like pec implants, like pectoral muscle implants to make his, chest look bigger, make him look more muscly or whatever. But actually, that's not necessarily the case. I have a sunken chest. Now, the way that Steven Anderson described it doesn't really sound like what I have. It's called pectus excavatum. Here, let me show you guys. Take a look at this. I may not be able to show this on the final stream or on the final video, but take a look. If you look, there you go. If you look from the side, you can see that I basically have no sternum, right? And if I like kind of pull in a little bit, you can actually feel my heart beating right here. You can actually feel ba-bump, 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 because there's no bone there. It's a genetic thing. Many of my family members have it, and there is a fix for it. They won't give you the fix unless you're under 27 years old, because it's really, really dangerous. Unless it's dangerous to the point that it's putting your health at risk. And mine is actually putting my health at risk. It's actually very dangerous for me to have this, because you can literally feel my heart through my skin. So yeah, it's not fantastic. I would probably qualify for the surgery, but the surgery basically involves cutting a hole in your skin on this side and on this side and running a wire through your skin and underneath like some bones right here in the chest. I mean, I understand the sternum is actually there, but it kind of dips in and then ends shorter. So you run the wire underneath the bone that's there, and you put a couple of screws on each side, and you twist it and break the bone in your chest a little bit more every day. Just break. And it takes like a month of twisting this screw and breaking your bone every day. And it's supposedly the most excruciating experience that a human being can have, fixing this. So, yeah, I've never done it. But the way that I heard it described from Steven Crowder is exactly like what I have. So I'm not sure. I don't know. I would not be surprised at all to find out that the guy had pec implants and bicep implants and all that other stuff. Do you really think that this guy is like exercising every day to like get all of these muscles? I would be surprised. But that is a reasonable explanation to find out that he had a sunken chest like that. I may not believe that if I didn't have it myself. So anyway, just food for thought. Now let's talk about this video. This is a little bit triggering for some people. I feel like the word triggering is overused a lot of the time as somebody who actually has PTSD. Some content is not triggering, it's just disturbing. You know, like hearing somebody talk about women's rights or how they should be erased or something like that. That's not triggering. That's just disturbing and disgusting. This is actually triggering, possibly. So be aware. If you've dealt with anything like this, it could possibly be triggering if you haven't seen it yet. This is Steven Anderson talking to his wife, July 2021, a month before their twins were born. This is his pregnant wife right here, 8 months pregnant. Give this a listen.
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things...
You know what? I'm actually going to step back. It's really hard to understand. I tried to clean the audio up, so I'm going to read it line by line if anybody is listening rather than reading the subtitles. He says, I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary.
No, you just did it. I drew a boundary.
No, you just did it. I drew a boundary. So what he's probably talking about here, I'm doing a little bit of speculating, take it with a grain of salt. If you go to couples counseling, I've never been to couples counseling, but I went to school for psychology for substance abuse counseling, and I learned a lot of techniques that are, that span across different forms of psychology. If you go to couples counseling and you two are not getting along and there's something that's really bothering the other about how they're doing things or going about their lives or whatever, the counselor may tell them to say, I'm drawing a boundary. This is what I need from you. If we're going to stay together, if this is going to continue to work, I'm going to draw this boundary. Please don't cross the boundary. And it looks as though what he's saying here is he doesn't like to be called abusive. And that's what she just said to him, that he's being abusive and cruel. So he says, I drew a boundary. Please don't do that anymore.
I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel.
Because that is abusive. He says, you are not taking the car.
I'm not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
If you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries, he says. So it sounds like this is what's going on. Again, pure speculation. I was not in the room before or after this conversation happened between them, so take it with a grain of salt. But having come from a psychology background, I'm going to give you my basic assessment as a layman who is not qualified to give this assessment, so take that for what you will. It seems like they probably went to couples counseling, and she demanded that he treat her with some level of respect, and he demanded that she do quote-unquote wifely things, right? And those wifely things are grocery shopping, walking the dog, giving the dog medicine, which is what they're fighting over right now. He wants her to give the dog medicine, apparently, at this moment. And she, being 8 months pregnant, is not comfortable handling this dog's medicine. Understandably, you can't even scoop cat litter when you're pregnant. There's so much you can't do when you're pregnant. I don't think it's an unreasonable thing that she's kind of putting her foot down on over right now.
I'd be happy.
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill.
She says, there are no groceries today. Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not unreasonable, but I'll go do it.
I know it's not unreasonable, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes.
Hillary, how do you respect the men?
Other than that, other than that,
The other man you see, the mother comes back.
you see the mother. No. Other than that, no, you're not taking the bus.
You're not taking the car, she says. You know, I've heard some people ask, like, why he's a multimillionaire. Why does he have one car? Again, this is all speculation, but it's speculation from the perspective of somebody who has been taken advantage of and abused by my dad, who has seen countless abusive relationships through my life. This, again, it's speculation, but it's a pattern that never fails. I see this pattern constantly within abusive relationships or from abusive personalities. My guess would be he only has one car because it's a control mechanism. He can control where she can go and when she can go there and what she can do and who she can be with and everything else. Again, maybe there are other cars in the shop. Why don't they have 3 cars? You got me. I know families that make $100,000 a year and they have 3 cars. He makes $10 million a year, maybe. I don't know. He's worth at least $10 million, I would be willing to bet. He could literally he could sneeze and enough money would come out of his nose to buy an extra car. What reason does he have to not have an extra car other than that? That's just my take. Again, speculation, just from my experience as somebody who's been in an abusive relationship before.
You're not taking the car.
Stephen,
You are not.
then I will ask someone to pick me up.
You're not taking the car, he says, and she says, then I will ask someone to pick me up. Who'd you like me to ask?
Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
He says, what is that, a threat? She says, it's not a threat, Stephen.
I'm correct, Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
He says, get an Uber. She says, I can't, ...
Feeling some constraints?
Stephen.
Like, I can't
Stephen.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents.
He says, you want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. If you take the car, I can't go do these things. Well, was he planning on going and doing these things? If he was, why doesn't he have another car? Why is this such an issue? And also, why is he smoking a cigar in front of his 8 months pregnant wife? 8 months pregnant. He's smoking a cigar in front of her. It should show you how he feels about the whole situation. Like, he doesn't seem to care at all.
I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here.
Like, he says, I can't, you're going to take the car and leave me here. I can't go to my friends. I can't go to blah, 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 wherever. Well, if you take the car and go do those things, she can't do those things either. Do you have a problem with that? Of course not. His problem is with what he is capable of doing, not with what she's capable of doing, because he doesn't view them as equals. Again, like, a lot of this is speculation, just winging it based off of a minute worth of footage that I saw, like a little window into their lives. But I have been in or adjacent to so many abusive relationships in my life. This is like deja vu. Like, this is an exact replica of relationships that I have seen or personally been in. It's like they have a school that they go to, abusive people, that they all train to learn to do the exact same things. It's weird. It's uncanny how similar abusive people are in these relationships. It's just strange. Seriously. So it's speculation based on concrete experience.
Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
Why doesn't he think of how boxed in he's made her? Again, he doesn't care about that. He cares about him, which is why he's smoking a cigar in front of his pregnant wife.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
See,
Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back? Well, he said He just listed a number of things that he wants to do, that he might do. He'd consider doing if only he had a car, darn it. He doesn't have that car because she's taking it. I could go to my parents. I could go to the gym. Sounds like you got a ton of free time on your hands. Why don't you take an Uber? Why don't you have one of your many employees pick you up and drive you around? Dude's got plenty of money, okay? He's got plenty of employees and friends and whatever he needs. She obviously needs some space here, and he's refusing to give her that space. This is classic from abusive partners. Classic. I've experienced it myself, and I've seen it a billion times. You're making a choice when you do that, is what was said. I, amplified the noise and cut out the background sound so I could understand. Steven Crowder said that.
The only way out of this is discipline and respect.
Only way out of this is discipline and respect. What? He's treating her like she's a child.
The only way out of it is we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
He says, if you can't figure this out or something like that, then we're at an impasse. And she says, we are at an impasse. And he says, good, because you can't have any discipline and respect. Yeah, there you go. I get skepticism about the situation. I understand. Totally. I get that, we're getting this one little window into their lives. And they're going through a divorce right now. Maybe this was deceptively edited or some other thing. I mean, there are a billion explanations. I could buy that. I could buy that maybe this isn't a fair representation of how he treats her. If this isn't exactly how he describes women or how he or what he talks about on his show every day, if this wasn't exactly what he purports to believe in public, he is describing or he is acting out what he describes the world should be like on his show every day. In a vacuum, okay, sure, I get it. Steven Crowder, maybe this is, not fair to draw assumptions. Maybe it's not fair to kind of try to pick at this and assume the worst and blah, 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 uncharitable. If I could understand those positions, if this was not what he vocally believes should happen, if this wasn't exactly how he viewed the world.
Yeah, there you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily. I don't give up.
Steven, you give up so easily. I don't give up, she says.
You give up so easily? I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. He said, then we're at an impasse.
He says, you give up so easily? I said the only way we're going to get out of this is discipline and respect. And then you said we're at an impasse. That's what Steven just said. No, we are at an impasse, okay?
No, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it.
Again, the reason that people call this abusive, this video, is because they have experienced this exact situation. Like I said, it's like abusive people go to school to learn this stuff or something. I don't know why abusive people's personalities are so similar to each other. My dad used to say that to me in the exact same tone. Watch it in the same exact way. How is it that they're all so similar to each other? It's uncanny. So he says, it's cruel and sick. And he says, watch it. And just those words, watch it, could be a trigger for people who have experienced mistreatment like that, like I have. Simply because they're all so similar when they say it.
Fucking watch it.
I'm going to let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just talk and baby for a little bit. Okay? I love you.
I'm going to go and get what you need, and I need some space, okay? I love you, she says.
You? I love you very much.
I love you, she says. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem.
I don't love you. That's the big problem.
I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, just be disciplined about it, you go, no.
He says, I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just need to be disciplined about it.
B, C, and D, just be disciplined about it, you go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No.
Wow. He says, if you loved me, you would put on some gloves. The argument, apparently, and I say apparently because I believe that this is coming out of court documents. A lot of this was revealed from court documents. he wanted her to give the dog medicine, and she didn't want to because she's pregnant. And pregnant women are barred from handling a lot of stuff. You would be surprised, honestly. You can't even shovel cat litter if you're pregnant because it could have an adverse effect on the pregnancy, really. It's so important to be careful when you're pregnant. And he wants her to put on gloves and handle this medicine anyways. But as he sits there smoking a cigar in front of his pregnant wife, instead of him just giving the medicine to the dog himself, he is being abusive to her and ordering her to put gloves on and do it herself.
No, but I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous.
But just put on some gloves. No, but I love you more than life itself. So he's saying she doesn't love him unless she does exactly what he tells her to and is disciplined and shows him respect. That is psychotic. I'm sorry. That is straight up psychotic. And he probably doesn't even realize how absolutely psychotic this is. And let me give you a little tip here. If you don't see how psychotic this is, it could be for one of two reasons. Again, pure speculation. In my opinion, if you don't see this for what it is, a purely abusive situation, I would venture to guess that you have never been in this situation or experienced it or seen anything like it before, or you're in the middle of it right now. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. He says, Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone.
Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone. Listen to me. Day in.
Even that, the tone that he puts on top of this is the same exact tone that abusers use. Again, uncanny. It's like they go to school for this stuff. Listen to me, day in and day out.
Listen to me. Day in and day out, worthy of a wife, worthy. No, not.
Become a wife worthy, he says. That is psychotic. Seriously.
Not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage anymore. I'm going to go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need.
I'm not going to engage. I'm going to go. Text me what you need.
I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
He says, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? He sits forward. Interesting. So, I mean, this is all speculation, and speculation is dangerous. But as somebody who was actually abused and in an abusive relationship with my dad, you know, when he sits forward with his cigar, you can see her step back a little bit. I used to do that exact thing when I was dealing with my dad. You know, he'd stand up in an attempt to intimidate me. Even what Steven is doing here, he's sitting here relaxed, and he changes his body language and sits forward. It's an intimidation, maybe not even intentional, I don't know. But it is intimidating. He sits forward and she shifts because she's concerned. My wife would never shift if I sat forward like that, ever. Because I've never done anything like this before, ever. Again, speculation. It just seems to me blatantly obvious that he is abusive to his wife, right? He's living his values, and his values include this kind of treatment. To push back against this kind of treatment is hard. I've been there and I've done it, and it's not easy. It's scary and dangerous, and you don't even know if they'll be your last words or not. Seriously. So let's step back and watch him sit forward again as he blows out cigar smoke in front of his 8 months pregnant wife.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not.
Put on some gloves. You committed enough to do those things?
I'm not going to.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said, I love you, I'm committed to it.
You're not committed to anything. You just said, I love you and I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs and put on some gloves.
Dogs, put on some gloves. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
So he sat forward, she shifted, and then she walked inside to escape the situation. Seems clear as day that she lives in fear of being abused. Again, speculation, take it for what you will. It seems plain as day to somebody who has been in this exact situation. Are you committed enough to do those things? He follows her inside and then she walks back out, trying to escape the situation even further. Why did she go inside? It wasn't to get something, wasn't to do something. She's trying to escape the situation, and when he followed her in, she walked back out.
Are you committed to do anything?
I'm gonna just
Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the
Walk the dogs, put on the gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication?
medication? The dogs. No, you take Betty.
Text pops up as the Crowders head inside. Stephen gets angrier and angrier, and by his own admission screams, "I will fuck you up," at his pregnant wife, Hillary, who then flees their home. The reason that we know this, the reason that they popped this text up is because it was revealed in court documents, in court, like, correspondent depositions or whatever you call it. I don't even know what it is exactly. It was revealed in court anyways. And that's why it says by his own admission, because he described the situation in court filings and depositions and stuff. That is Steven Crowder. That is who he is and what he does and how he treats his wife, his family, his kids. No part of that was okay. No part of those interactions. I don't care who you are or what you believe or what you've done in your life or what you've experienced or what. I don't care. Nothing about that was okay. And if you've been in this situation, you know exactly what this feels like. You know exactly what she was experiencing in that moment. I certainly do. The story doesn't end there. Interestingly enough, this video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to bring it to an end pretty soon, but there's one more video I want to show you. So April 28th, 2023 rolls around. This is just, a day or two maybe after that video leaked that we just watched. And Steven Crowder releases this video.
I commented on my ongoing divorce on Tuesday, requesting privacy in the best interest of the family, but also by court order agreed upon by all parties. Look, broken marriages are ugly, and in them people do ugly things. Myself, of course included, I would never claim otherwise. However, due to recent misleadingly edited leaks to the tabloid press with...
So he's saying that what we just watched was misleadingly edited. I don't care how edited it is. I've been in those exact situations before, and I saw her body language, and I have exhibited the exact body language before. So has every other person who's been abused on planet Earth. This is entirely too close to home. We know exactly what type of person Steven Crowder is now.
Press without context and not subject to consequences of the court.
Context in that is largely irrelevant. We saw exactly how she shifted when he sat forward. We heard the language that he used against her. We've seen, the court documents and things like that, some of it.
Well, if not privacy, the next best option is truth. So today, I have filed a motion to officially unseal all files as they relate to the matter of legal record. Finances, relevant medical records, including mental health history or evaluations, depositions, and any motions or sanctions from the courts of Texas. I will not be leaking private marital information to the press, but if the...
No, but he's going to leak it to the public. I mean, maybe not give it to a tabloid, but he's unsealing it and he's going to release it himself anyways because he has a platform. Whoever released this video didn't have a platform, right? He's the one with 5 million subscribers on YouTube, not Hillary Crowder.
But if the privacy agreements are not respected by all parties, I will address all that is a matter of irrefutable legal record in full context next week.
So what he's saying is he's going to release his soon-to-be ex-wife's mental health records in retaliation for this video being released of him abusing his wife, basically. Does it get lower than that? Honestly, I felt like the Daily Wire thing where he attacked them for no reason was low, but this is lower than that, surprisingly. I honestly didn't think it was possible, but here we sit. Just disgusting, man. Straight up disgusting. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm just like, this is just bad.